Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are strapping on our spurs, you could say.
Yeah.
We're riding straight into a really detailed film review of Quentin Tarantino's seventh film as writer-director. That's the 2012 spaghetti western revival, Django Unchained.
That's right. And we're not just, scratching the surface here. Our mission is to really pull out the essential insights from this specific review.
Okay.
We want to look past the usual chatter, dig into the directorial style, the critiques of the performances, and, the controversial bits, too.
Right.
Especially what made this movie feel, and this is a direct quote from the source, uncomfortably long.
Uncomfortably long. Okay. And just for context for everyone, this film, it's QT returning to the spaghetti western.
Mm-hmm.
It tells the story of Django, who's a slave freed by this German bounty hunter, Dr. Schultz.
Right.
And then the two of them, they basically go on this, lawful but very bloody bounty hunt across the South.
Collecting bounties, yeah.
Before heading way down into Mississippi to the Candyland estate to try and free Django's wife.
So it sounds like, a classic revenge plot on the surface.
Yeah.
But the execution, it's pure Tarantino, isn't it? Which means the structure itself is as much a talking point as the actual story.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that signature style then, because the very first thing our source flagged was just the sheer size of it, the length.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking 165 minutes. That's, 2 hours and 45 minutes?
Yep.
Which the reviewer just immediately called incredibly self-indulgent. But, isn't that sort of what we expect from great directors? A little indulgence, the auteur thing?
Well, that's the tension, right? The source definitely suggests that very little got left on the cutting room floor.
Uh-huh.
Which implies, total creative control for Tarantino.
Yeah.
And when a movie runs nearly 3 hours, that indulgence, it needs to serve a real purpose.
And the reviewer felt maybe it didn't always.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
That sometimes the stylistic choice is kind of overshadowed, maybe narrative efficiency.
Gotcha. So the length is sort of a symptom of his whole approach. Stylistically, it's definitely in the same vein as his other stuff, but it leans really heavily into homages this time.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a giant pastiche of the genre.
The love letter.
A love letter, yeah. But one, the reviewer says, includes every cliche of a Sergio Leone movie. You've got Riding into the Sunset.
Right.
The really glaring, almost kind of jarring 70s style soundtrack in places.
Okay.
And on the more sort of intellectual side, the reviewer spotted a specific nod to Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
Ah, okay. Classic QT detail spotting. But here's where the review gets, pretty critical overall.
Yeah, this is interesting. The reviewer actually notes that for them, nothing since Jackie Brown really made them want to watch it a second time.
Ouch.
Yeah. And even called Kill Bill Pep 2 flat out a snore.
Wow. Okay, so this reviewer isn't exactly kneeling at the altar of Tarantino then.
Not at all. Seems like they respect the early work, but are pretty skeptical about the later stuff,
Yeah.
especially the length and maybe the replay value. Right.
Which sets a really high bar then for the actual content of Django to kind of overcome those structural issues the reviewer sees.
And it sounds like one element absolutely cleared that bar.
Yeah.
Like the unanimous standout performance.
Oh, completely. Christoph Waltz as Dr. King Schultz, the supposed dentist who's actually a bounty hunter.
Right, the German bounty hunter.
The praise for Waltz is just, it's huge. The reviewer says he's even better here than in Inglourious Bastards.
Wow, better than the Oscar-winning role.
That's what they said. He just embodies Schultz with this perfect mix of sincerity, sarcasm, and just total confidence.
Huh.
Waltz is basically the reviewer's anchor in this really long, really bloody movie.
Okay, so you have this perfectly written, perfectly performed character in Schultz. But hang on, the movie's called Django Unchained.
Mm-hmm.
If the standout, the anchor, is the German supporting guy, what does that suggest about where Tarantino's focus was as a writer? That's a really good question. It raises issues about focus, which we'll definitely get to when we talk about Django himself. But first, there's this funny anecdote in the review about Waltz's appearance.
Oh, yeah. This was great. The reviewer actually thought he was Harry Gruner at first.
Yeah, from Buffy.
Mayor Wilkins from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they said the beards were throwing them off. Mistaking Christoph Waltz for the mayor of Sunnydale, that's pretty funny.
It is funny, but the reviewer actually turns it into a kind of interesting observation.
How so?
They connected the actors because they both have German roots, right? And suggested maybe their shared Teutonic upbringing, as they put it.
Okay.
Informed a similar kind of performance style. Precise, confident, which fits Schultz's character perfectly.
Ah, okay. So less about looks, more about a shared cultural performance style. That's actually quite insightful.
Yeah, it moves beyond just, hey, that guy looks like that other guy.
Yeah.
It's real film watching insight.
Okay, so Waltz is a masterclass. Well written, brilliantly acted, and even prompted some interesting analysis from the reviewer. How does that stack up against the title character Django, played by Jamie Foxx?
Well, Jamie Foxx's performance, the reviewer called it the best thing they'd seen him in, which sounds like high praise.
It does, yeah, but...
But there's a big but. The script for Django himself is described as pretty one-dimensional.
Ah.
So the idea is Fox plays the part well as the script lets him. But he's limited by the writing, especially when he's standing next to Waltz doing all those verbal acrobatics.
Right. That lack of depth in the writing, it's highlighted even more by that visual confusion the reviewer had, right?
Exactly. They honestly thought Fox was channeling Denzel Washington.
Really?
Yeah. And even said they misread the movie poster at first, thinking Denzel was the lead.
Wow.
I mean, when your protagonist's writing is so thin that it makes the reviewer think of another, maybe more commanding actor, that really backs up the one-dimensional critique.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so that sets up a really interesting contrast with the main bad guy, Leonardo DiCaprio as Calvin Candy, the plantation owner.
Right. And here, it feels like Tarantino poured a lot of energy into crafting this memorable, just awful villain.
And this was a big step for DiCaprio, wasn't it? His first time really playing a villain.
Huge step. First time playing someone truly despicable.
And apparently, he needed a bit of a push to really go there. The review mentioned some behind-the-scenes stuff.
Yeah, a little nugget about the on-set dynamics. DiCaprio was reportedly pretty concerned about the level of profanity and especially the racism he had to portray.
Which is totally understandable, given the role and the setting.
Absolutely. But Tarantino's response, according to the review, was basically intense pressure. He told DiCaprio he had to just go with it or he would be seen as a failure.
Whoa. That says a lot about the dynamic. High stakes, maybe even a bit coercive.
It definitely shows how hard Tarantino was pushing those boundaries, both of controversy and performance.
So what's the end result? How's Candy described?
As an overgrown, spoiled child with a silly beard and a potty mouth.
Huh. Not exactly a calculating mastermind, then.
No. It seems the horror comes less from intelligence and more from just sheer entitled depravity and that deep-seated racism. Spoiled evil.
Okay. So moving from the main players, we get to Candyland, the plantation. And this brings up maybe the most talked about supporting role, right? Samuel L. Jackson as Stephen.
Yes. Stephen, the head house slave, the butler. And this role brought up some really complex and definitely controversial critiques in the source material.
SLJ is such a known quantity, such a distinct screen presence. Playing a character like Stephen must have been a choice.
A huge choice. The reviewer said it was a role unlike any I have ever seen him play. But the critique gets loaded really quickly.
How so?
Because his appearance was called bizarre, and it directly made the reviewer think of, quote, fake black makeup worn in the 60s and 70s in programs like the Black and White Minstrel Show.
Oof. That is a very charged comparison to make.
Extremely charged. It sounds like the reviewer felt the caricature was so strong, so visually extreme, that it initially made them question what SLJ was even trying to do. Was it an intentional commentary, a pastiche, or just an uncomfortable depiction that went too far?
Did the review offer any clarity on that? Did the performance land eventually?
Well, the source handles it pretty carefully. It notes that while the first reaction was sort of confusion, maybe discomfort, the character did gain some complexity towards the end.
Okay.
Ultimately, the performance gets called memorable. But, crucially, they stop short of calling it remarkable.
So memorable mainly for the shock value of the character design, maybe? Less for the depth?
That seems to be the suggestion.
Yeah.
Its impact was heavily tied to how jarring the character looked and acted, that minstrel show comparison hanging over it.
Okay. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, that critique about self-indulgence, what about the rest of the supporting cast? Specifically the white characters like Don Johnson's Big Daddy.
Right. The review suggests they generally lacked much subtlety or depth. Don Johnson is Big Daddy, his KKK buddies.
Yeah.
They mostly seem to exist either as, well, targets for Django and Schultz's bullets, or as foils for Dr. Schultz to outwit and sound clever against.
So another example maybe of efficiency being sacrificed. Characters simplified just to serve the plot or a joke.
That's the read, yeah. It potentially dilutes the dramatic weight of the whole setting. if the surrounding evil is kind of cartoonish, does it make the film feel less like a serious take on slavery and more like, well, like a comic book revenge fantasy set in that era?
That's a key question. And then there's the point about female characters, or the lack thereof.
Yeah, a very telling detail the reviewer picked up on, a complete lack of memorable, let alone award-worthy female roles.
Really? What about Django's wife, Broomhilda?
She's the goal, the MacGuffin almost, but not really fleshed out as a character in her own right, according to this review. And they specifically point out this other character, a strange woman in the red bandana who just gets shot randomly late in the film with zero explanation or follow-up.
Huh. That sounds like messy storytelling, especially in a nearly 3-hour film.
It points right back to that cutting room floor problem, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Including a random unexplained death that late suggests maybe not enough discipline in tightening things up or even justifying why certain elements are there at all.
Which brings us, inevitably, to the violence. Because for all the talk about structure and character, this is still a Tarantino action movie.
Oh, absolutely. And the review makes it clear. It is very bloody, very gory.
How gory are we talking? Did they give a comparison?
They did. A very specific one. They said, imagine if the black and white fight scene in Kill Bill 1.
The crazy 88 scene.
Exactly. Had been in Technicolor.
Whoa, okay. That paints a very vivid picture. Lots of red.
A lot of red. It underscores that the film doesn't just use violence. It kind of revels in it, that stylized gore. Maybe, the review implies, sometimes past the point of what's narratively necessary.
So, okay. We've got the indulgence, the homages, the standout waltz performance, the one-dimensional Django script, the controversial SLJ, the underdeveloped supporting cast, the extreme violence. After all that, what's the verdict on the film's overall message? Does it work?
That's the million-dollar question the review grapples with. Does all this? Does it actually add up to a powerful indictment of the woes of slavery?
Or
does it feel more like Tarantino just showing off, like a, quote, look what I did, ma, statement from the director? Style over substance, maybe?
is it a serious historical drama or just provocation dressed up as a Western?
That's the core tension, yeah. Is it genuinely challenging or just highly stylized? And the final recommendation from the reviewer really synthesizes all these points.
Okay, so what's the bottom line? Who is this movie for, according to the source?
It's pretty straightforward. If you're already a Tarantino fan or just a big Western fan, you'll probably enjoy it.
But there's a physical warning label attached too, right?
Yeah. You also need, and this is verbatim, an iron stomach for the gore and an iron bladder for the nearly 3-hour runtime.
Okay. Iron stomach, iron bladder.
Got it. If you've got those, you'll likely enjoy the ride. Otherwise, the review's advice is blunt. Stay away.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, this deep dive really highlights that central tension in the review, doesn't it? The brilliance of Waltz's character and performance, contrasted with the flatness of the protagonist's script, all set against these really stylized, sometimes controversial supporting roles like SLJ Steven.
It's a film of incredible highs then, but also real questionable choices, especially regarding that length and focus. It forces you to think about creative freedom and its potential downsides.
Exactly.
And that leaves us with something to mull over, drawing from the source. Given that 165-minute runtime and the reviewer's very clear take that Tarantino's total control led to an incredibly self-indulgent film, here's the thought. What hidden value might be lost when a director, even a celebrated one, gets complete freedom from the discipline of the cutting room floor?
Good question.
Is that kind of creative sprawl always genius, or is it sometimes just avoiding the hard work of editing? Something to think about next time you're faced with a director's cut.